Heights is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Houston, and it doesn't shy away from being different. Its quirky vintage vibe sets it apart from other neighborhoods in the city. This week's local brewery fits right into the neighborhood mold. What was once an old food distribution warehouse is now home to Eureka Heights Brewing Company. It's a 20,000 square foot warehouse with a quirky personality and serious beer brewing capacity. It holds a 35-barrel, 2-vessel system with 5 fermentation tanks and a bright tank. For those of you not familiar with brewing equipment lingo, it means they can produce a good amount of beer per brew. Colby and I got to spend a few days hanging out with co-owner and head brewer Casey Moats.
So before we started the brewery, I was actually an engineer by trade. I did oil and gas construction, worked for the railroad for a little while, and then ended up kind of getting involved in the beer community. So I got a job, luckily working at another brewery here in Houston called St. Arnold. They're big, awesome, amazing place to go learn a whole lot about the industry and really just fell in love with what the industry was. And then just eventually kind of got an itch to start something of our own.
He's one of those salt of the earth kind of people. Laid back, easygoing, and incredibly passionate about two things: brewing beer and bringing people together.
Our personality is dumb and fun. I mean, we think it's beer. It's not supposed to be something that's super serious. When we're developing beers, we look at things that are interesting, approachable, and fun. That's what we want everything to be. We don't want to have just these very pretentious names. All of our beers have goofy names like Buckle Bunny or Mu Caliente. We're big fans of bad puns. Beer's about getting people together. We have these big picnic tables here at the brewery, so you sit next to someone you don't know. Beer's a nice social lubricant, but there's a reason why the second building built in the U.S. was a pub, because you need a public house for people to go hang out and get to know each other. And we want our beers to reflect that it's supposed to be beers for everybody. Maybe not every one of our beers, but if you show up here or if you go out and they have 3 or 4 of our beers on tap somewhere, then you're going to find something you really like. And we think that's important because you want that just to experience of hanging out and getting to know someone else next to you.
I'll admit, before this segment, Colby and I were reading articles like Beginner's Guide to Craft Beer and Googling beer terminology. But after spending time at Eureka Heights, we've definitely been schooled.
To make beer, you really need 4 things. You need water, malt, hops, and yeast. Our first step in the process is to make a bowl of oatmeal. That's all we do. We mix malted barley in hot water, about 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's gonna convert starches that are in that grain to sugar. These are 2 examples of kind of what different malts would be. This is gonna be a pale malt or a base malt, and we can actually get in there and chew on some if you want. We strain it out, so basically we pass it through a giant pasta strainer and let the liquid collect in a separate tank. We dump it through, our water drops through, and that's what we basically want to hang on to, is that liquid. At this point, it's very sweet. Most of our beers would kind of have the sugar level of a soda like Coke or Pepsi. It's very mild. To me, it just tastes like grain or like a feed store, if you ever go to something like that. But as you're chewing it, the saliva is actually going to sort of create some sugar. Yeah. So if you were to let it sit a little longer, you get some sweetness actually from the malt. To balance that out, we're going to do a couple things. The first thing is to add our third ingredient, which is hops. Hops both add aroma and flavor, and they also add a little bit of bitterness. After we're done, we're going to boil our liquid where we usually add our hops. But what we can do then is actually add in the other ingredients, like our cinnamon and cayenne. Or if we were doing like a Belgian style beer, sometimes they use coriander or orange peel. Yeah. We could add it here as well. And when we look at the varieties of hops, it's almost like a spice cabinet. We have some that are very earthy, some that are very citrusy, one that smells like fruity pebbles somehow. But we can use those in different combinations to create the different beers, from a cream ale to an IPA to an imperial stout. We cool this boiling liquid down and we put it into a tank. So we add our last ingredient, which is yeast. And yeast will actually eat that sugar, it replicates itself, and it actually creates CO2 and alcohol. After about 7 to 14 days, we're gonna have beer.
When I said Casey has a passion for bringing people together, I wasn't just trying to be deep. They intentionally craft their beers and supported longer hangouts.
So one thing that was important to us when we started the brewery was to create maybe beers that weren't around or that were a little more unique. And one way we did that is to keep everything a little lower alcohol. So for our core beers, none of them are higher than 6% alcohol. Most of them are sub 5, which is a little on the lower end for craft. But what we wanted to do was just give someone the ability to maybe have a second or third pint without necessarily having a really, really high alcohol content. And it stems in from wanting to hang out at the bar a little longer, wanting to hang out at the picnic tables a little longer, and chat with friends a little longer. That if the beer's a little lower alcohol, then you kind of extend that time of hanging out. And it stemmed from when we were homebrewing. I learned if I've made a 9% beer and put it on tap at the house, that my friends were just as likely to drink that as they were a 4% beer that I had on tap at the house. So I realized unless I wanted them to sleep on my couch on a regular basis, we're gonna brew some lower alcohol beers.
Getting to know the brewery outside of taproom hours, you quickly realize that Eureka Heights Brewery isn't just about great beer. A big part of who they are goes into bringing people together and supporting the local community.
When someone has one of our beers or they come here to the brewery, I want them to walk in and kind of feel welcome, feel like it's a place they've been before, feel like maybe like this is pretty unique and it fits kind of where we're at and our personality. It's big, it's open, picnic tables, it's friendly. Hopefully they get to come up to the bar and maybe try a beer that they haven't had before, a style of beer or a unique take on a style that maybe is like, well, that's kind of interesting. And maybe they hopefully chuckle or laugh at one of our dumb names, or get together and hang out with someone at the picnic tables and play some Trivial Pursuit and just really feel like a sense of community and feel like hopefully they've been here before.
They had a release party on Saturday where they teamed up with locally owned Boomtown Coffee. They were featuring a collab breakfast stout.
I've been working for Boomtown for about a year and a half now. We're all about good coffee. We roast just right around the corner from here.
Boomtown is very much a part of Houston, but also really focused on the coffee and where it comes from and the direct relationships with the farmers and everything that goes into it. So yeah, it's a great business.
And remember that quirky neighborhood mold? Well, the release party was getting its quirky on. Pilates was in one room, Houston roller derby team was hosting a bake sale in another, a baby shower was celebrated in the back, add to the mix that a camera crew was there, and everything felt oddly right.
The one thing that keeps, I think, people involved in craft beer is the community amongst craft breweries. It's amazing to see what people are willing to share, and it's amazing to see how everyone's willing to help each other out. No one's cutthroat, no one's out there slashing tires, because we feel like craft beer is about a higher quality product, and there's so many people out there that haven't had a chance to experience it yet, that if we can all make a quality product and really help push and elevate Houston and Texas craft beer and US craft beer as a community, then that's good for everybody. That there's room for everyone to grow because we think it's just a higher quality product. And once you have a higher quality product, you don't really go back. You're willing to go out there and learn about it because it is better, and I think that's important.
So I think it's safe to say that our newbie craft beer dignity is making its way up. And while we learned a lot about the technical side to brewing beer, what stood out the most is that craft beer isn't just about production. It's about having a true passion and commitment for something you love and then being able to share in that with others.